Alrighty, we're going to start with the buttons and dials on the camera. Get you familiar with how the camera works, and then we're going to go in depth into the menu. To begin with, we'll start with the right side on the top. And basically you've got the on-off switch. In addition to that, if you turn it one more notch beyond on, you get the LCD illuminator, or the top panel illuminator. It's a great feature for when you're shooting in low light. Our next setting, the mode button. The mode button takes you through the different metering patterns. You've got program setting, where the camera sets both the lens opening and the aperture. You have aperture priority. You select the lens opening, the camera's going to set the correct shutter speed for you. You've got shutter priority, just the opposite of aperture priority. You select the shutter speed and the camera matches the correct aperture based on the lighting conditions. And then there's full manual. In manual you have full control over both aperture and shutter speed. The camera has a little scale inside the viewfinder that tells you when you've set it correctly based on its determination of the lighting. What mode do you find you use, Brad?
I use aperture priority probably 90% of the time, if not more. The only time I ever go into shutter priority is if there's a specific effect that I'm going for, like to get motion blur, or if I'm shooting with studio lights or flash or something, I might jump into manual mode.
Great point, great point. I use aperture priority myself. I find it very intuitive, easy to use, and quick. Well, with the next setting then, that's the exposure compensation button. What that allows you to do is override the camera's meter. Now, as accurate as these metering systems are, you want to add your own personal touch to the image. You may want to add some mood or brighten up an area of the image. So by pushing and holding these buttons and then turning the main command dial, the one here in the back, you can actually override the meter in 1/3 or half stop increments up to 5 full stops to add your own creative effect and drama to the image.
Now, Lori, with the exposure compensation, does that only affect the exposure if you're in aperture or shutter speed mode, or does it affect it when you're in manual mode, or no?
Great question, actually. The exposure compensation only works when you're in the automatic modes.
Okay.
Once you're in manual, you're controlling each, the shutter speed and aperture, separately, so that's up to you to determine. And again, that scale in the viewfinder will show you how much brighter or darker you are than where the camera suggests you should be.
So if I'm in aperture priority mode, it will adjust the shutter speed by the exposure compensation. If I'm in shutter priority, it'll adjust the aperture.
You've got it. That's
Great.
Exactly right. That way you can control what you want. Again, you're wanting to say, since you shoot aperture priority like I do, I don't want my camera to change the aperture once I've set it. So now it will change the shutter speed. And as Brad mentioned, just the opposite when you're in shutter priority.
Great.
Great tip.